Today we're doing our third and final speed test on Trial Director 360. We're going to take a look at save stages. Today what we're going to do is we're going to pit two computers against each other. One, a Dell XPS 13 Ultrabook, 8 gigs of RAM, solid state drive, Core i7 quad-core processor, and no discrete graphics, only an Intel 620 on board, versus an Acer Triton 700, a gaming beast with 16 gigs of RAM, Core i7 quad-core processor, and 6 gigabytes of an NVIDIA GTX 1060 discrete graphics. And we're going to see how they do in terms of making and also displaying save stages. Now, save stages were something in Trial Director 6 that is a feature that I really wanted to love, but I always had a hard time using it. Anytime you made more than a handful of save stages in your Trial Director 6 case file, it would start to make the entire case file unstable and things would just start to get unpredictable. For this final test, and if you haven't seen the first two tests we've done, I'll post links in the description and you can click right in the corner up here if you're watching from a desktop to see those other speed tests. In this speed test, we're going to open up Trial Director 360 and we're going to take a look at performance of the CPU and GPU on the Performance tab in Task Manager. As a side note, for all of the screen recordings that I'll show for this video, I'm going to use an onboard screen recorder. So that is going to have somewhat of an effect, but it's going to be the same effect for both computers. I'm going to do it the same way. One of the things I've noted, I've already gone ahead and made a whole bunch of save stages in both the Dell and on the Acer. And I'll roll some of that footage now as I'm talking. But one of the things that I did notice that was a substantial surprise is that navigating through and making the save stages, it took a long time and it was a bit of a laggy experience, at least on this Dell. So let's go through. Here's the 20 save stages that I made. I'm just going to go through, click on one, and then as soon as I'm able, I'm going to click on the next and try to rifle through them as quickly as possible. But here it is, and we'll just start marching through them. And now I'm double clicking on number 3. Double clicking on number 4. It's to the point where it makes me think that I need to double click something again. That's how long the delay is. And so this is something that would be a little bit frustrating for me if I were running with this in court, the fact that they're taking so long to try and get these save stages up. And as we go, it looks like the GPU and CPU utilization is staying relatively constant throughout this, but yet it seems to be pulling up the different save stages even slower. And so we'll go to number 7, go to number 8, number 9, and it also seems to depend, I could be wrong on this, but it seems to depend on how big the source exhibit is in terms of how many hundreds or thousands of pages is, in terms of how quickly a save stage will come up. And so that's an interesting observation there too. And now for the 11 through 20, what I've done is I put up 2 pages from within the same exhibit just to have more to throw at Trial Director. I was kind of seeing if I could break it and make the save stages, make Trial Director 360 completely unstable and or even crash like I've had happen to me before in Trial Director 6. But I wasn't able to do any of that. And the performance of having a multiple page, multiple callouts, and maybe even a highlighted or pre-highlighted callout wasn't really any different in terms of how long or how fast it was able to pull it up. Sometimes things would happen faster than others, and so it became a little bit frustrating. JTX 4 and JTX 5, which are the save stages we're looking at now, those are the longest exhibits. Each one of those is about 1,400 pages, and it seems like pulling up save stages from those exhibits are taking the longest time. That kind of delay when someone is trying to do a cross-examination and really put the pressure onto a witness, timing is a big part of the rhythm that an attorney can get into. And this is the kind of thing that's going to really irk a lot of high-functioning attorneys that love to be able to have a very fast pace. So a little bit of a disappointment in terms of what's going on the Dell that doesn't have the discrete graphics. And remember, the minimum recommended specs, I think, is 1 gigabyte, as if there's a such thing as a 1 gigabyte discrete graphics card. So now let's switch from this computer. We're going to switch over to the Acer. That's the computer right behind me. And we're going to see how that does in terms of being able to load up these various documents. So now we're set up we're looking at the Acer Triton 700 with its GTX 1066 gigabytes of video memory. And what I'm going to do is I've already made the 20 save stages for this case file, but just so I can get a screen capture of what it looks like when we're making save stages, and so you can get a feel for the user interface and the user experience when I'm making save stages and just navigating around the same exact size case file. I wanted to go through some of that again, and I'll make another 3 or 4 save stages just for you guys. So you can see here on this workbook, we still have 20 save stages already. But what I'll do is I'll just go through exhibits 5, 6, and 7 so you get a feel for a long one and a couple short ones in terms of what it's like to just navigate through. So opening up exhibit 5, and just scrolling down, let's throw an exhibit in there and make a save stage. So we'll do that. One. So there's always a little bit of lag after you hit the save button or that floppy icon when you're making the save stage. It seems to be slightly less, although not substantially, but it seems to be slightly less when you're using it on the more powerful computer, the one with the discrete graphics. And let's say, all right, we'll do that. And then we will throw in one from exhibit 7. So even just exhibit retrieval is a little bit faster, a little bit snappier, what I would expect. Overall, it's still a bit frustrating that you have to have 6 gigabytes of video RAM to get it to work at a speed that I would consider to be acceptable. But at least there is a way to get it to work, and according to their recommended specs, it is working. Not that it didn't work before, but this is just a little bit snappier. So what I'll do is I'll do the same thing that we did before. I'll start off with just a regular page from JTX 10, and then I'll march through the 20 exhibits to see what it's like. So just pulling up exhibit really quick, double click the exhibit, and it's really quick up there. I'll even pull a much larger exhibit just to get a feel for what the speed is like. So even just exhibit retrieval, which in previous speed tests, I didn't feel like I felt this much of a difference. So I'm not sure what the difference is this week. Maybe it's just I'm noticing it more because I'm paying a little bit more attention to how fast things are going. But now I'm just going to try to march through. I tried to make similar save stages. So in the beginning for the first 10, we'll have a single page from an exhibit and a call out and maybe a highlight that's highlighted. You can see we're marching through them a lot faster. Although I do feel like the same kind of bogged down effect is happening, even though at no point on any of these exhibits are we really maxing out any of the system resources. It seems to be that save stages 4 and 5, which correspond to exhibits 4 and 5, which are the really large exhibits, those do tend to take a little bit longer, although the delay and the discrepancy in how much longer they take seems to be minimized with a much more powerful computer. So a little bit of a surprise to me so far in terms of what we're seeing. And now we're going to get into the double page, 2 pages from the same exhibit, but I'm all doing 2 pages and a call out. And we're going through them relatively quickly. And so this was a little bit of a surprise at how well these are working and how fast I'm able to pull them up. And so it's been nice that these are here because I do really like using the save stages, especially for a lot of attorneys that like to move really quickly, whether it's direct or cross. And they just don't want to have to go through the charade of directing your attention to page 538, third paragraph. Some of them just want it pre-highlighted up there. And for a lot of cases, you're not going to draw a leading objection by doing that. So that's my experience looking at the way that the GPUs are used differently in terms of onboard graphics versus discrete graphics. There is, I think, a noticeable difference both in terms of the user experience once you start getting some save stages in here, and in terms of the speed in retrieving those save stages. I'm happy to report that I haven't seen anything in terms of instability with using a bunch of save stages within a case. So hopefully if you're using Trial Director 360, save stages is something that's going to be an option for you. I'm not sure that having save stages that finally work in a reliable way is enough to really convince me that Trial Director 360 is ready for trial. I still think for me a showstopper is that import time, the subject of speed test 1, which is how long it takes to get exhibits from PDFs on a thumb drive to a state where you can actually publish it onto a screen. I just think that takes unacceptably long. And so I'm still not using Trial Director 360 in the courtroom. I've been using OnCue. OnCue also has a way of making save stages that saves it kind of like if you're saving an annotated page in Trial Director. That's how OnCue saves the save stages instead of putting it into a separate save stage workbook. And I know I could put these in turn into other workbooks and make it a little bit easier, but the way OnCue handles it is a little bit more intuitive to me. And also on that Dell, which had a lot of problems and it was struggling to get through some of the bulkier exhibits here in Trial Director 360, I just thought that OnCue can handle those, that size of PDF and the size of case file really easily without breaking a sweat. And so, but for me, it seems like Trial Director 360 can be made to work well. You need a lot more hardware to be able to make that happen, which I think is a step in the wrong direction. I'd rather be toting around, while I don't mind toting around a gigantic gaming laptop, if I don't have to, I don't really want to. And those are the results of speed test number 3. I think that's probably going to be the last speed test that I do for a little while, at least until I see any kind of substantial update or change from Trial Director 360. Now, I understand that there are some updates coming from OnCue, and so once that happens, I'm going to dive into those as well and give it kind of the same treatment. If you have any questions about either of these programs or any of the speed tests, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd love to talk to you guys down there. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.